There's a bit of an awkward dynamic in Hollywood these days. The issue is an uneasy accommodation where emerging young screenwriters are from increasingly diverse backgrounds and bring with them a mindset advocating for representation and inclusivity on screen, and an attitude ranging from blasé to critical about traditionally white male actors playing the leading roles in films and series. The problem that arises here is the fact these white male leads are often deemed necessary as beloved legacy characters to helm projects that might not otherwise draw a sufficient audience to recoup a studio's investment, or get the project off the ground in the first place. In other words, the promotion of progressive and inclusive ideals isn't going to be received as well as you'd like if you can't get bums in seats, including the pastier, flabbier bums of older viewers who grew up with such legacy characters. The shaky, often uncomfortable compromise that has arisen in recent years is one where a traditional white male lead with a recognized name and ability to bring in a loyal audience will act as the catalyst and ostensible protagonist, but will be pecked and scratched at by identity politics, deconstructed, cast in an unfavorable light as out of touch, have their history retroactively undermined, and they will often be made a passenger in their own project. They will be haunted by mistakes, aging, struggling for relevancy, questioning their own motives, grumpy, forlorn, and broken. Luke Skywalker was the ideal realized hero at the end of Return of the Jedi. Having completed his character arc, he was wise, had conquered his demons, and was emotionally mature. In the hands of modern scriptwriters, before the Mandalorian de-aging CGI horrors, he was reduced to a bitter and cranky figure disturbed by his own failings, self-exiled from responsibilities, atonement, or renewal, and drinking green alien titty milk on Craggy Island. James Bond was always the epitome of suave confidence, whose backstory and internal feelings and motivations were never delved into, because to do so would be beside the point, a total downer, and only served to dispel the mystique that made the character such a sensation and source of fun to begin with. But explore the inner feelings and motivations Hollywood did, reducing the character to a wan, worn-out, skeptical, and existentially troubled figure who was tedious to watch. Jean-Luc Picard was an assertive and charismatic leader in Star Trek The Next Generation. He radiated authority as a professional aboard a vessel with immense military capability. There was a distinct chain of command, strictly enforced consequences for disobedience, and his character was the indispensable protagonist in a large cast. Modern scriptwriters, even accounting for Patrick Stewart's age, have reduced him to an uncertain, emotionally vulnerable, sentimental passenger in a nihilistic world, surrounded by forgettable characters who speak about social issues and talk and act much of the time like adolescents. Most recently, of course, is Obi-Wan Kenobi, where the titular character, fittingly for his circumstances in the Star Wars timeline, but also fitting the stereotype, is a broken man, haunted by past mistakes, lacking in direction, personal connections, unassertive in a world that has moved on, reluctant to be involved, and most of the time either forlorn, guilty, or miserable. The question then is, how is this dynamic going to change? Legacy characters in this vein are getting pretty old, and the younger characters lined up to replace them aren't necessarily catching fire with the viewing public. The solution is for Hollywood to create exceptional new characters of any background, and make them compelling enough in new worlds to capture the imagination of a vast audience. The uneasy détente of recent years, of white male protagonists on the posters and in the trailers, but flawed and undermined in the actual content, in ways that frustrate much of the existing fanbase, feels like it has to run its course sooner or later, simply because there aren't that many franchises and beloved legacy characters left to be subjected to this treatment by socially conscious but mediocre scriptwriters, who don't seem to realize, or to particularly care, that there are many of us who are deeply fond of these characters, and are aggravated to see them traipsing about on screen without any of the agency or magic that made them so appealing in the first place. They might also care to heed the fact that when a beloved legacy male character competently does a bunch of fun stuff, it shatters Memorial Day box office records.